Hey, this is Joe Gilder from Home Studio Corner. Got a question to my 3 rules of EQ video from Andrea. Hey, Andrea, thanks for the question. She writes, I'm totally new to using EQ. Can you recommend how to train my ear to hear what you're talking about? I feel totally lost. If you haven't seen that video, I highly recommend watching that next, or maybe watching it now and coming back to this video. I explain generally there are 5 bands of EQ: lows, low mids, mids, high mids, and highs. And I talk about the different ranges, what they sound like, what to listen for, things like that. But if you want to go in and really hear it for yourself, I've got an exercise you can do that will help you isolate those frequencies and really hear what they sound like. And you can do this on just about any system. So first thing you want to do is find a piece of audio. So here's one of my songs, and I'm going to drag that into Studio One on a channel. Next thing I'm going to do is duplicate this track onto another channel, okay? So we're going to copy it over twice. Now, here's where it's really cool. If we take this second channel, and if you look here in the top part of the mixer, if I've got the, what is it called? The input controls turned on here, I can flip the polarity of the channel by clicking those buttons. Now, your system may be a little bit different. Sometimes there's a polarity button on an EQ plugin. Sometimes it's individual plugin. Like, for example, if I bring in Mix Tool, it has an invert button that I have to turn on to do this same thing. However you do it, your system's going to be a little bit different if you're not using the exact same software that I am using. But I'm going to use that button. And you'll notice what happens. You're not hearing anything. I've got my fader turned up. You're just not hearing it. Now, if I mute one of the channels, what do you hear? But now you don't. Why? Because the 2 channels are mathematical opposites of each other, because I flipped that polarity. So the first one, the waveform goes up. The second one, the waveform goes down. This is +2, this is -2. What happens when you add those together? Nothing. 0. So what's the point of that? To show you how to make silence? No, because who cares how to make silence? We know how to do that with a mute button. But what's interesting is when you do this and then you reach for something like an EQ, whatever you boost or cut with that EQ is what you hear out of your speakers. Only that. So I'm going to boost here in the mids. Let's see what happens. Okay, when I boosted, we just heard that mid-range. Instead of hearing the mids boosted above everything else, this is actually helping us isolate specific ranges, so I can hear what the lows sound like. I can hear about what the highs sound like. Left me bleeding on the ground. And we know what's useful? What's useful about this? Well, it allows you to hear, okay, I talked about this in the 3 rules of EQ video. Maybe you have some conceptions about where the kick drum lives. And maybe you just think the kick drum lives at 100 hertz. Well, let's go find the kick drum. I'm going to take an EQ and I'm going to boost at 100 hertz. Here we go. Okay, now I hear the kick drum a little bit, but I actually hear the snare drum more at 100. Listen. And it's certainly not the essence, the depth of a kick drum like I would expect it to be. Let's go down lower. Ah, okay. So the lows were really down at like 50 hertz. The real depth of the kick drum was at 50. Up at 100 was more kind of the low mid-range of it, the kind of woo, woo, woo versus the boom, 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 the really deep stuff. That's really interesting information to know, because otherwise you're going to come in here and start trying to boost the low mids or cut the low mids in an attempt to affect the lows, and you're not, because those aren't the lows. It looks like it visually on the screen. That looks like that should be the lows, but it's not. The difference between 100 and 50 is massive. Okay, let's stick with the drum theme. Where are you going to go to get more snap out of the kick drum? A lot of folks will say go to 1K. Okay, let's do it. Here we go. I don't hear any snap there. I mean, I can hear that the kick drum's in there, But if I were to go boost 1K on the kick drum, I'm not going to get a lot of tit snap out of it. So where is it? Well, let's just drag this EQ up and see if we can find it.
If life is one big disappointment, then maybe I'm doing this thing right.
Found it. So the snap of the kick drum, that's living over here at between 5 and 6K. That's miles away from 1K. So if I want my kick drum to have that nice snap, it's also the snap of the snare drum, coincidentally, or at least some of it, then I need to have a boost up there. Those are the frequencies that need to stand out, not 1K. Can you see how just with those two examples, we've debunked a lot of myths that we tend to have of what lows and highs are, of what frequencies do what to the sound? I mean, that alone, listen to that. That's where it is. If I was listening to this mix and I said there's not enough snap in the kick drum and I start doing a bunch of crazy stuff at 1K, I'm just going to make it worse. I'm not going to get any snap out of that kick drum.
Knock me down.
Now, will this exercise completely transform your mixing after doing it once? No. And I'm not a huge fan of ear training exercises for the sake of ear training exercises. This is just meant to be kind of a smack in the face, oh, that's what those frequencies sound like exercise. So then when you're listening to a mix and it sounds like this, you can say to yourself, boy, that feels like it has just a lot of low mids in there. And then you can go in and you can pull those down. And suddenly all the other frequencies have permission to come through. The low mids were just the loud guy at the party that's hogging all the attention and is so loud no one else can have a conversation. Now we've put him in his place. I'm not sure how we do that at a real party, but in a mix, it's easy. You just pull it down with some EQ. Now we can hear the lows, and we can hear the highs and the mids. Everything else feels really great. All right, that's it for this video. If you liked this tip, go try it for yourself and see how it works. Also, if you haven't seen the 3 Rules of EQ video, highly recommend watching that. It's one of the better videos I've made in the last decade of making videos. I think I've finally figured out how to explain EQ in a way that's giving people some aha moments. And if you do a lot of mixing or you plan to do a lot of mixing and you need a step-by-step process of what comes after what, how do I start a mix, how do I do the middle part, and then how do I know when I'm done, you definitely need to check out my 5-step mix guide. It's completely free. Go to 5stepmix.com to get your copy today. Thanks for watching. See ya.
Back up and fight.